Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. I want to talk predominantly about Lawrence Okolie today, but I also want to discuss Devin Haney because there were some really interesting points made on yesterday's show on Stamina for Sales, Spencer Fearon and Tunde Ajayi's channel. And there are some topics I really want to go over and cover here. But first, I just want to also address the scorecard between Lawrence Okolie and BILLAM-SMITH. A lot of people are raging at this 112-112 scorecard, and as I explained in my own post-fight review where we got technical and we spoke about how the various fights over the weekend went, it was understandable to me that a judge could have it very wide for BILLAM-SMITH, but also how a judge could have it very, very close. And people couldn't understand my position on that. I've had one or two questions whether I'm being biased in favor of Lawrence Okolie, but let me explain exactly what it is, because I did touch upon this in the review, but I need to further elaborate on this because it seems to be that there's some real confusion when it comes to scoring. In a 10 points must system, there is a 10 points goes to the winner of a particular round. So you win 10-9 if you win the round in a standard manner. If you knock someone down, it's 10-8. If you knock them down twice, it's 10-7. If both guys get knocked down in a 10-point must system, it doesn't go 9-9. It goes back to 10-10. It's almost as though the two knockdowns never happened. They cancelled each other out. That's what it means by 10 points must. We must establish the winner of the round at 10 points. However, when it comes to deducting a point for whatever reason, excessive holding, cheating, a low blow, headbutt, whatever it might be, you score the round as you normally would. So if you had Lawrence Okolie winning the round, it becomes 10-9 to Lawrence Okolie. But then after that, you deduct a point from Lawrence Okolie if he's lost a point. So it becomes 9-9. Think of it kind of like a discount at a shop. You go to a shop and you read 10% off. You take the piece you want to buy to the till. They put it through and it says £20. After that, they take away your £2. And discount comes off afterwards. It's the same thing with deducting a point. It goes 10-9 Okolie, then he loses a point and it goes 9-9. You don't automatically bump up BILLAM-SMITH to 10 points if he lost the round. Do you understand? So it wouldn't become a 10-8 round to CBS unless you felt CBS won the round. And this is why I was explaining in the review, it's a 4-point swing. So if you had Okolie winning the 2 rounds he got points deducted from, for instance 5 and 7, as I did in those 2 rounds I had Okolie winning, I would score it 9-9. If you had CBS winning, it becomes 10-8. So then you start to see those massive swings. Okay, I just wanted to establish that. Now moving on from that, let's talk about what was spoken about on Stamina for Sale yesterday. First and foremost, Spencer Fearon got very controversial. He has been implying now for a couple of days that he doesn't feel that Sugar Hill is doing a good job with Lawrence Okolie. He feels that he's gone backwards. He feels that he's not using the jab effectively enough, a key weapon that could potentially be there for Lawrence Okolie. And he also feels as though Okolie's balance is a real issue. And he has said that Lawrence should move to Tunde Ajayi ahead of a rematch with BILLAM-SMITH. Now, I always play the defense and the prosecution, so I'm going to talk about where I agree with Spencer potentially and where I disagree with Spencer potentially. First and foremost, I want to say this. I don't personally think we've had enough time to see them together, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it's been, to judge the development. A lot of fighters are hardwired. It takes a long period of time for them to learn their new trade, their new craft, their new skill set, and it takes time to adapt. It takes a long time for a lot of fighters because they're hardwired like that. They're not moldable. And if you look at what Shane McGuigan had said recently, he was talking about how Lawrence Okolie has had 4 trainers in a short space of time, and he was explaining how whilst we all have led ourselves to try and mold him and we've left an imprint on Okolie, ultimately he reverts back to doing what he does, and that suggests that is a guy who is difficult to train. Now, one of the things that Tunde Ajayi mentioned as well is that when you are consistently getting success with a specific route, a specific method, you start to get into this mindset of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's very difficult to adjust and employ a new style before you failed, because you brought so much success to yourself that you start to think, do I really need to get myself out of this comfort zone? This is what works for me. I found a recipe. What a lot of fighters need to do though is start to add those wrinkles to their games before they fall short. You understand? And that's what Tunde essentially is implying here, that's why maybe Okolie got into a rut. Now, one of the things I do like about what Spencer Fearon said is that he identified that balance is an issue for Okolie. Now, I don't know how much of that is biomechanics, because he's quite broad up top and he's not as broad in his legs, kind of like Deontay Wilder. And because when he sometimes overreaches with shots, you see him as he leans forward, when the top is wider than the bottom, so to speak. Natural gravity will make it harder for you to pull yourself up. This is why if you're going to build a really big structure, let's say you're going to build a pyramid, right, something like that, the base is what's big, because you need a strong base. If you haven't got a strong base and you turn a pyramid upside down, for instance, balancing it's going to be a lot harder. So it could be that there's a biomechanical issue there with Lawrence Okolie, but whatever the case might be, he's so physically strong in his upper body, the way he wraps people up. He's never been in a position where he's been told you can't hold or we're going to disqualify you. Now, going back to what we were talking about with the scorecard being close, although it was close, you have to understand that maybe it was only close because Okolie was wrapping up Chris BILLAM-SMITH, because he was getting off his own shots, landing and then falling in and tying him up. And in that scenario, Chris couldn't get his work off. So in those situations, who are you going to give the round to? Even if you don't like what you're seeing, Okolie's the only one who's landing the punches. Well, if Okolie is stopped from being able to do that, and Chris BILLAM-SMITH can get off his own hooking, maybe the fight looks very different, because maybe Okolie gets absolutely battered because he hasn't developed the ability to fight with CBS up close. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you have to develop the skill set before you need it. Now, I know Tunde Ajayi has always had a lot of criticism from different quarters, even pro fighters. If you look at Twitter, how many pro fighters used to really mug him off when they would talk about Anthony Yarde. I was always a guy that defended Tunde, and in fact, one of the ways this channel really started to get a lot bigger, and I understand I'm still a small channel, right, we're in the 6,000 subs marks, but it was a really small channel back in the day, and it was Hatman that helped this channel grow by shouting me out and saying, for my money, Chris Andre is one of the best boxing analysts you'll ever come across. That first video he did saying that was in response to a video I did called In Defense of Tunde Ajayi, because so many people were after him, so many people were attacking him, and I was trying to explain, listen, first and foremost, I don't agree with the way the first Yarde-Arthur fight was covered by people. I thought it was a very close fight, and early rounds I thought that the bodywork of Anthony Yarde was going under the radar, so I had no problem with Anthony Yarde getting the result in that fight. I could see why he felt he won the fight, and a lot of people were making out like he definitely lost. I don't think that was the case at all, but Tunde was the one that was getting all the criticism. And what I was trying to explain to people back then, who were saying that Anthony Yarde's just this wonderful athlete and Tunde Ajayi is holding him back, Anthony Yarde is not a fighter who steps into a ring, who's a brilliant athlete and just brawls. If that was the case, then I would agree with you. He's just fast, he's just strong, he just hits hard, right? Okay, I would accept that. But all the things like shoulder rolls, pull counters, the ability to deflect shots off of elbows and shoulders, the understanding of how to change levels as you're seeking to close range, these are things that he's taught. Who taught him them? Tunde Ajayi was with him from the beginning. So this idea that Tunde is just some yes man who screams lions in the camp and nothing else, listen, I understand if you see him and Spencer Fearon as loud and braggadocious, and maybe that's not the personality type you like as a person. I can't tell you who to like and who to dislike. Everybody's got their own tastes when it comes to people, right? But don't let that judge how you observe somebody else's abilities in their job. Tunde Ajayi's done a terrific job with Anthony Yarde, and when I was explaining the build up to Beterbiev that, look, Beterbiev's the favourite, I'm picking Beterbiev, but Anthony Yarde could potentially do this if he can capitalise on one or two technical aspects of Beterbiev's game. And we got deep into that, we're not going to get into it, but when I was saying it would be a tough fight, he was going to give a good account of himself, people were accusing me of being crazy. Well, since then, he's gotten a little bit more credit, because when people saw what Yarde did in the ring, they were very, very impressed. Artur Beterbiev's a great light heavyweight. He would have been a great light heavyweight in any era. Trust me on that. This is a guy that is a highly decorated amateur that can box on the back foot, or he can walk you down. He can punch, he can fight, he can box, he can do a little bit of everything. And Anthony Yarde was able to hang with him and give us one of the best fights of the year. Now, you don't do that if you're just a really good athlete who's strong and who's fast. He would have got destroyed. There are other strong fighters who have been in there against Artur Beterbiev and been absolutely mauled. It was guidance from the likes of Tunde Ajayi that have helped develop Anthony Yarde into the fighter that he is today. So make no mistake, things like balance is something that Anthony Yarde's very, very good at, despite the fact that he's also very muscular up top. He's top heavy. Now, he's not as lanky and gangly as Lawrence Okolie, so he might have better biomechanics for it. But don't assume that Spencer Fearon is just talking. They may see something there where they think, you know what, we can actually help Lawrence Okolie. Now, does that mean you should go to Spencer and Tunde Ajayi? I can't possibly say. I don't know how things fit together, right? But I do believe that Sugar Hill, it's too early to judge him. You know, if I'm Lawrence Okolie, I probably would stay with Sugar Hill at this point just to see how it develops, because it's too early to judge. But the point I'm making here is that a lot of people might seek to write these comments off because later on in the program, Tunde Ajayi went on to explain how a lot of people talk about just finding a big American trainer, a big American name, or moving to the US, and that's not necessarily what is conducive with success. And a couple of people were saying, what you're talking about, Tunde, you went over there as well to the Mayweather camp. You go abroad and you experience things and you learn, and there may very well be some serious benefits from training out in the United States. You might have more sparring available to you from different styles. You may very well come across elite trainers out there because there are so many of them. It's such a big country. It's essentially a whole continent, right? It's like the whole of Europe. So you're going to find top quality stuff there, but it's not as straightforward as that either. Let's say, for argument's sake, you're a heavyweight and you want to go to America or to Japan in order to find sparring. Well, you're not going to find that much quality sparring there. Whereas if you're a flyweight and you want to go to Japan, you're going to find top quality sparring. If you're a welterweight and you want to go to America, you're going to find top quality sparring. So even that's not as straightforward as everybody makes out, right? Your specific circumstances often matter. But this idea that it automatically equates to some magic pill is just not true. I remember people used to say to me, Anthony Yarde should just go and train with Freddie Roach. What does that even mean? That doesn't mean that he's suddenly going to become this elite level fighter because he's started training with Freddie Roach. They might not click. Enzo Calzaghe was an amazing trainer for his son. Joe was possibly the best fighter Britain has ever produced. Now, does that mean that Enzo would have been the best British trainer of all time? Well, I think most analysts and most fans aren't going to say that, right? But he was the best for his son. Floyd Mayweather Sr., Roger Mayweather, brilliant trainers for Floyd, incredible for Floyd. How did Floyd Mayweather Sr. do with Ricky Hatton? Right? It's about the right fit for you. So it's very possible that Lawrence Okolie just might not fit with Sugar Hill. It's too early, like I said, for me to say that, but it's possible. And on the other hand, he might fit perfectly with Tunde Ajayi for all we know. I'm going to leave that to you guys to judge, but it's not an impossible thing. This idea that British trainers just aren't much and that if you run to the US or wherever else, you're going to suddenly find all the cures to all your limitations just isn't realistic. Don't forget, Devin Haney, Team Haney, Bill Haney, will often get Lee Wiley, who's a performance analyst and had a channel that is not too dissimilar from our channel when we do technical breakdowns here, right? But remember, I'm a massive fan of Lee Wiley's, right? Please don't take that as me trying, oh yeah, I'm like Lee Wiley, I think he's brilliant. So please don't take it as me bigging up my own trumpet here or blowing my own trumpet. I'm simply explaining what he used to do, technical breakdowns on YouTube. Then you've got Ben Davison, who's another one who's a brilliant tactician and technician as a trainer. Both of those two guys send over game plans to Team Haney. Devin Haney, who has Judah, Zab Judah's dad, highest level, right? Performed at the highest level, Zab Judah. He has Bill, his father, who trusts implicitly. He has Mickey Bay, another guy who was in the Mayweather gym, who a former world champion, a really, really good technical boxer. He has these guys in his corner, and who does he get advice from when it comes to a game plan? Lee Wiley and Ben Davison. Let that sink in. Now, with regards to specifically Tunde Ajayi and his fit with Okolie, I do like the fact that at least that they've been talking about balance, because I do think that is a key issue for Lawrence Okolie. I do think he loses positioning and balance when he falls into shots, and because he lacks that inside game and he's got these really long arms that prevent short punching, he tends to wrap up guys to put himself into a safe position. So at least they're aware of certain things they feel they need to work on with him. Let me know what you think about Lawrence Okolie and how he rebuilds. I'm one of those guys that actually wants to see a rematch with Chris BILLAM-SMITH. I know a lot of people are talking about the fact that he's boring and all he does is hug, but I'm always interested to see how top level fighters adjust. Now that he knows he can't get away with just holding, is he going to be able to fight differently and fight on the inside, or be better with his balance, not overreach, not shift his weight over that lead foot so he can maintain distance control more effectively? Let me know what you think about that. Now, in addition to that, Antonio Tarver came out, and like I said, one of the best analysts you'll ever come across, Antonio Tarver, when he had that little show with Roy Jones Jr., Paulie Malignaggi and him, Tarver, and they were talking tactics and technical elements. It was just superb viewing, man. I think it was Pro Box TV, just brilliant, because those are guys that are real technicians and they understand the sport. And I have no doubt in my mind that Antonio Tarver, who was a brilliant technician in the ring as well, would be able to relay a lot of that knowledge to a fighter. So I actually wrote in and managed to get my question answered, and I basically said, Antonio, I have no doubt that you'd be a top level trainer. Who is it though from today's crop of fighters that you feel that you could really improve? And Tarver said he would love to work with Devin Haney ahead of a rematch with VASYL Lomachenko. He feels that should take a rematch to try and silence critics essentially and not allow this to be a stain on his name, and that he feels that he could help with his punch and technique and help take him to a new level. Now in the past I have explained how I felt that Devin Haney does have some issues with his punch and technique, specifically the left hook. He doesn't turn knuckles over. The way he delivers the right hand, as I explained in the preview to the fight against Lomachenko, he will often lift that back foot off the floor and swing it around, and in some ways it works for him because it means that he's changing position within the pocket, and he actually can sometimes maximize the length, the distance he has by stepping out as he throws the right hand. But what it also does is it takes away his ability to coil off the floor and really rotate into the right hand and deliver it with power. So there is some issues there with punch and technique that works for him in some areas and not so much in others. Antonio might have looked at this sort of stuff and said, you know what, I actually thought I could improve Devin Haney here. Where do you think he should go from here, Devin Haney, and how do you think he should improve? Who does Okolie link up with next? Should he stay with Sugar Hill? Should he move on? And if he does, who do you want to see him move on to? Can he adjust and beat the likes of BILLAM-SMITH in a rematch? How does Devin Haney improve his game? Is he capable of stepping up a division with the current skill set that he's got, with the current punching technique that he's got? Do you think that draining himself makes himself more vulnerable, and if he stopped doing that he would actually be a better fighter? Or do you think that the reason he's draining himself is because there are certain weaknesses that would be exploited by the likes of Regis Prograis, Josh Taylor, and so on and so forth? Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.